no big deal or anything, but when I read books, I cry pretty easily. It doesn't take much for me to get very emotional about a book. And you know, I've cried over quite a lot of books over my entire life, and you know, it's fine. I'm okay with it. It's a thing. But I just figured I'd show some of the books that I've cried about with you. Does that make sense? I don't know. These are not all the books that I've cried over, but these are just a few, you know, so let's just talk about them. Yeah, shall we? Let's get started. 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. That book, obviously the book is about death itself and about a girl who committed suicide and the 13 reasons why she committed suicide. Obviously it's gonna be a little emotional. Obviously it's gonna pull at my heartstrings and make me turn into a mess. It did that exactly. I remember sitting, I think, in the living room at my dad's house, and no one was around, thankfully, and there was this one part and I totally just, waterworks. Yeah, it was amazing. Not really. It wasn't pretty at all. Moving on. Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Patterson. I read this book in the 5th grade and I had to do a report on it for English class. I remember my teacher, I think his name was Mr. Monder, we got to pick the book that we got to read and then we had to like write a report on it. And anyway, I picked that book thinking, oh hey, the cover looks interesting, you know, this should be fun, I'm gonna enjoy this because I love to read so much and I get to read a book of my choosing in this class. So I read it and that book just broke my heart, and I did not expect what happened to happen. And why author, why the person who wrote this book, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Like, no. If you've read the book or seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And for just looking back, poor 5th grade Erika, I am so sorry you had to go through that torture and pain and agony. Oh, so sad, so sad. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. So yeah, this is one of my favorite books and made me cry. So you probably all know what this book is about. You've probably either read the book or seen the movie or both, you know. I don't need to tell you much, but you know, that book's one of my favorites, and it's just it's very touching, and it just gets your heart and it just rips your heart into a million pieces. And I cried like a little baby, but who cares about that? Another one would be It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. This is also one of my favorite books. You see a trend here, don't you? There wasn't a specific point in that book that made me cry. It was more just after I read the book, I kind of just like soaked it in, and then the emotions just came out, and those emotions involved tears. So, you know, it's a really good book though. You should read it. I love it. It's one of my favorites. The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks. It's Nicholas Sparks. I should have known going into this book that I would be a giant mess coming out of it. But I read it anyway, and I was a giant mess. Obviously, waterworks, so many waterworks. Oh my gosh, I remember I was at a family function and I was so into this book. I was loving it, and I was just like, nope, I'm not gonna be social with my family today. I have got to finish this book. So I went upstairs to a guest bedroom, sat there for like an hour and a half to finish the book, and oh my gosh, I started crying at like a birthday party for one of my cousins, and oh my gosh, I'm so happy no one went upstairs to check on me because that would have been embarrassing. I was a mess. Thankfully I got my stuff together before I went back downstairs to be a social human being. Obviously I couldn't because I was just thinking about the book the whole time and how sad I was, and oh, feelings, don't like them. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I think any normal human being reading this book probably cried. If you didn't cry, what's wrong with you? I cried multiple times during that book, let me tell you. Waterworks everywhere. That book is one emotional roller coaster ride that you need to be prepared for if you haven't read the book yet, just so you know. Yeah, no, so many tears. Let's not talk about it. Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. That book, just thinking about that book makes me really emotional inside, and I'm sure if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. I will not say anything about that book because I don't want to spoil anyone, but you need to read The Infernal Devices if you haven't, because brilliant, brilliant, also very sad. I cried a lot. The last book I will be mentioning is The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the last book in The Lord of the Rings. I cried so much. So much. I mainly cried because of Sam. He was so loyal and dedicated to Frodo, and just that whole relationship just made me feel so many emotions, and I don't want to talk about it anymore because I will probably start to cry just thinking about it. But that book, that series, everything, you really need to read The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit if you haven't, because you are missing out on just the best. The best, okay? It's just the best. Not gonna cry. Not gonna cry on camera. Nope, not gonna do it. So those are all the books I'm going to mention for today. There's a lot more. There probably will continue to be a lot more books that I cry over, but you know, that's enough for one video. Maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future. Who knows? Hopefully not. Maybe I will become strong and not cry and be such a baby. But you know, there's not much hope for that. So I'm gonna go now. Bye!